university and was one of 8, even though there were 500 students in my graduating class, I was one of 8 who left the state. Most people just stay there. Anyway, so then I met Kim, and I was just so used to these liberal arts students at Willamette who like had no idea what my experience had been, and we have a lot that's different between us, so that was like our schools were really similar. So I always tell my students, Lincoln High School is actually the first high school I ever heard about in Washington State back in 1998, and look at me now. So Kim introduced me to some people. I was having a rough time at my former school, and they said, do you want to come to Lincoln? I said yes, because I had heard that they're doing really amazing things with the population that I really feel drawn to. So there's 81% of the students there are students of color, 68% of the people, like just reported free and reduced lunch. We know that there's probably a lot of undocumented students who don't want to put their name on the list for understandable reasons. But we also have an 83% four-year graduation rate, which is really, 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 really good when you consider other factors going on in the community. And it's because we've had the same principal for 13 years, and he was a social studies teacher before, and he's like headhunted. He's sent his minions out to find people who are really engaged and really all about this work. And so the synergy between the staff it's kind of crazy. It's a totally different league from where I was. Not to throw my past school under the bus, but
also too.
Yeah, but also this is it, so you can change it. So I got to Lincoln, and my students demanded better teaching from me. You know, like I always had the connection. I just think that my students really, really need 3 things. They need a lot of structure. They need to be told explicitly what the expectations are and how long, this expectations. They need to feel connected to me. I need to be real and authentic. And they know if you're fake in a second. So you have to believe what you're saying to them. And so it's all about your mind and your heart and being there in the moment and paying attention to them, being very present. And I had this, I had this before, but I didn't have these other 2 things. And then the other thing that they needed was content-specific and academic vocabulary. The academic language is the biggest barrier between students who are usually in AP classes and students who aren't. And so I just have been working on becoming a lot more explicit with vocabulary work than I had been before. So I'm going to show you, we're going to kind of go through a unit of my AP World History class, and I'm going to show you examples of things that I'm doing throughout different parts of the unit that I have only created since I started teaching at Lincoln, and it's all kind of been inspired by my colleagues at the school and just like what different trainings that the principals had us go through. It's just like the school's amazing, and I did not know any of this stuff before I started, and it's anyway. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is a protocol called numbered heads together. Anybody know? Raise your hand. Have you heard of that? Okay, a few people, not everybody. My map notes is just a structure. I'll show you. Study guide, vocab review, and collaborative study groups. This is like AVID style. Does anybody know CSGs? Okay, raise hands. Okay, this tells me how much time to spend on different things. Okay, thank you. Click it. Okay, numbered heads together. This is a lot of text. Can you click to the next one? Okay, so picture a room and my classroom. It's very small. We have 32 students. Wait, 30 students. I have groups of 4, 8 groups of 4. Each group has a person 1, a person 2, a person 3, a person 4, right? So wherever you are sitting at your group, you know what position you are, okay? All of the groups have different names. So they're group names, like we're in Unit 5 right now for AP World History. La Pola was like a hero of the Colombian resistance to the Spaniards. And so she's a hero, and this is the name tag. It's laminated in the middle of the group space. All of the different groups have different heroes from different parts of the world, so that's fun. So I go, all right, okay, here's your question. We're going to talk about similarities and differences between the French Revolution and the Haitian Revolution. Person number 1, you're going to be sharing out. Right? And so then you have 1 minute, ready, go. And they talk about it, but then the student, can you go back to the previous slide? So, so I go, person number 1, are you ready? Here we go. And then I pull a group name out of a little cup, right? I go, all right, person your turn. And then that person knows that they are going to share out. But it increases equity because it ensures that we're hearing all voices. I mean, there's lots of ways to do this. You can hold popsicle sticks, but I like this one better than what I had been doing because it gives them forewarning. They know that they're going to be speaking, and so there's a lot of scaffolding in there. They're talking to their group mates. If they don't know what to do, then like another person of their group could be like, say, right? And then they're still getting the practice of speaking those vocabulary words and speaking through like how the sentence is supposed to sound. And it's really good for language learners because they're getting all of that speaking practice. They're also doing the cognitive work that they need to be doing. So that's just like how we roll in my class. It's always like discussion, think time. There's never going to be a cold call because that's really humiliating and that totally disintegrates the feeling of welcome that Kim was talking about. So you want to like scaffold everything so nobody's ever like, right? Because that causes trauma and then they don't want to come to class anymore. All right, next one. Okay, so we're going to do a little turn talk. You need to find an elbow partner, decide who's going to be partner A and who's going to be partner B. Okay, you don't have, you can opt out if you don't want to. But partner A, you're going to have 10 seconds. Tell your neighbor, how does numbered heads together work? And then partner B is going to take 10 seconds to tell your neighbor how numbered heads together lose seconds. Ready, go.
So numbered heads together, like every class is 1 to 3. The teacher uses it as a method as a way to have everybody's
partner B, you have it done? Three, 2, 1, bring it back. Thank you, partners. High five. Good fun. That's scratch whenever you need. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So math notes. This is a lot of more text that I will just explain, but can you exit and show the map notes? There. Yep. So I was a pretty traditional AP teacher for several years, and we would have PowerPoints, and they would take Cornell notes, and we'd go over Cornell notes. But I got to Lincoln, and they were like, no, I don't know what you want me to write down. I don't know what's important, and they're very vocal and bold students, and I love them. But it was like, whoa, what? You're demanding things, and it's because they go from awesome teacher to awesome teacher to awesome teacher, then they get to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, you need me to be more clear? Okay, so then for the last couple of years, I've been working on these templates, and first caveat is I don't think this is appropriate for like 11th or 12th grade. Like you want to scaffold them so that by the time they get to college, they can make the decisions about what's important enough to write down. But for 10th graders, this is the crucible. Like they need to feel confident in an AP class so that they continue to take AP classes. So I'm trying to figure out what is the cognitive load. What is all the thinking that I'm asking them to do on any given day? And I just don't want their energy to be spent on trying to figure out, of all of the words I'm saying, which things should they be writing down. And so I'm really clear with what notes they're gonna write down. Can you scroll down? Scroll down. So we break down Unit 5 for AP World History. How many AP World History teachers do we have here? All right, Rob. All right. Are you in Unit 5 too?
What's that? Yeah.
All right, scroll down some more. Okay, this is from Freeman PD. More. Okay, so industrialization. So I have all the parts of the unit kind of in chronological order. It's not according to key concepts from the College Board because they don't make any sense for kids. So we have like a section on the Industrial Revolution. And instead of having them having Cornell notes, it's like very clear. So we have what is the Industrial Revolution? What were the causes? What are capitalism's tools? Can you go to the next thing? Effects of the Industrial Revolution. Pros, cons, and so some of this, it's just me, and I have the same notes for every class. And some of it, because now we're kind of further into the year, I'm having them make their own decisions, so it's like a gradual release throughout the year of like them trying to make decisions about what is the most important information that we just learned that you're going to put in this box. Can you scroll down some more? Okay. Right, so then it's taken from the key concepts from the College Board, so all of the important concepts that they're supposed to know are here, but it's like also translated into more accessible language, and it'd say like workers organize, and then we'll give them the notes about the unions. Governments argued about whether to industrialize, so that's the Tanzimat reforms and what happened in Japan, right? Governments promoted industrialization, and then it's like Russia building the trains. So it's all the information that they need to know, but then can you go back to the slide?
The slide?
Yeah. Present.
Sorry, it's
It's okay, it's cool, it's cool. Somebody else's computer. So like I said, so this is good because they have the same information as the kids. I have 5 sections, and they're all packed. 30 students in all 5 sections, 150 essays a grade every time. But it means that they're forming, at Lincoln we have seminar, it's like an advisory, but it's every day, it's an extended day, so that they can spend an hour a day doing their homework and going to teachers' classes and asking for help. And so they end up forming study groups together, and since they all are sharing the same information, instead of random people's random Cornell notes that look nothing alike, they can have far richer conversations and apply that information on a deeper level and make the similarities and differences and synthesize it in different ways, because they're not trying to figure out like, oh, do you have that? Do you have that? It's just like, it's thinking about where is the cognitive load. So, yeah, and also because we have a lot of absences, it's like a transitive population. They have to go to the hospital with their grandma, or they have to like go pick up their kid brother from something, like they're doing a lot of things, and so there's just gonna be a lot of absences. And teachers sometimes have the tendency to get really like, these kids are missing all these days of school, but like you just have to come up with ways to account for that. So having a shared set of information is really good for that purpose too, because they can just get it from their friend. I don't have to do it. Okay, next. Okay, so turn and talk again, same partners. How did you, I know there's a lot of smart people in here, and I don't want to just say this is the way to do it. I'm sure you're doing really great things, but you have to present a lot of content. So how do you present content, and how do you check for understanding of that content? And then on the next slide, I'm gonna like collect actual great ideas. So this one's gonna be a little bit longer. Just take a minute or two. What are some different ways, tricks, things that you do?
I mean, it depends. Yeah. Have the basic I just
Wrap up those conversations. We're gonna have another 30 seconds or so.
You could type it in Word and then copy and paste it into the slide.
class when they're only 18, you know, it's really still has that additional field. Because I think it's so what is effort has to go in.
I know, right? Okay. The a 3, a 2, a 1. Eyes up here.
High five.
Excellent. Okay. So, does anybody want to nominate their partner to share a really great idea? Did you hear anything great? Oh, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whew. Any great, like, just, or maybe it doesn't have to, that's too high of pressure. Great ideas. Just general things you talked about. Any? All right.
I nominate my partner.
Okay.
Station rotation.
So I actually, I'm a district facilitator, but I used to work with younger kiddos. But we would do station rotation, where they would analyze a document or a picture. And then they would rotate around and have to respond to the previous group in some form or fashion. And then we would take that information and do Socratic seminar or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's kind of like the thing you did in your session yesterday. I nominate you to share that because not everybody was there.
Okay. It was a way of breaking down a tough document, and I just took 4 excerpts from it and put them in the middle of the big butcher paper and had the groups talk about what facts they could pull out of it, what inferences they could make from those facts, and what questions they're left with, and it all related to a central question. And then the next step after that was to get into the document and annotate it, but there were a lot of questions that came up first before they really got in deep.
Yeah, so there's a lot of incentive to read a really boring text because they already have these questions. Yeah. Other ideas? Yeah.
Well, I have 2 things now that you're talking about station rotations. In my classroom, station rotation, each station was specific. So there was a collaborative group station that the task was collaborative. There was a listening station, so they were watching a video or listening to a podcast or something. Independent work, that was my focus. And then there was a teacher-led station, which is not common in high school, but it was kind of my favorite thing about doing station rotations. And then my partner had, I'll just share your idea of doing case studies, kind of jigsawing different case studies.
No, I think you're in a PBL context. So you're not going to learn about every early modern empire because we're not, I don't want to let, you can't do that. But you may be the Mughal Empire and you've got to negotiate a treaty with, and so the next 3 weeks, we'll learn about these different phenomena going on, new maritime trade. You're going to learn about these things, but the lens you're going to look at them from is this empire. And if you have to negotiate a treaty, you're going to have to negotiate it with someone else. So you're going to learn a little bit about that other place, enough to like compare, and then if you listen, and then we'll have like we do this reception. They give toasts, and then if you listen to the toasts, you'll learn about the other. Well, the British are toasting the Ashanti. Okay, and anyway, so, and then if you do the outside reading, which I never assume anyone does, because I don't weigh it a lot, and they don't necessarily have whatever variety of reason. You also have a backup to get. I want to know it all. Okay, here's some ways you can get that information.
Yep. Any other ones? Great. Okay. So then, can we copy and paste? We'll do it later.
We'll do it.
So this is I just wanted to collect this so that if you go to the Google Drive folder for the session, then you can see everybody's great ideas instead of putting it on a piece of butcher paper that gets thrown away. So if you want to see how that goes, but just Narayana, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing.
Awesome. Okay, so then get back to your All right, so then study guide. I'm not gonna talk too much. Interesting.
It's cool. It's fine.
Whatever. Okay, study guide is not that exciting, but I changed the way that I tell them what's going to be on the exam. There's just, teachers just like to make
Go back to the math notes.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have them, are they responsible for their own notes at home, or do you do all your notes?
We
in class and then
mostly do them in class. Those are the class notes, and they also have to do homework.
And
They
they
have
do
to
their
do their Cornell notes for homework, but a lot of times it'll be, because I have been deeply influenced by Walter Parker, there is always a guiding question for their Cornell notes for homework, and usually that guiding question is also a box heading on the math notes. So it'll be like, take your Cornell notes on the Ashanti Empire, here's your guiding question, and then in class, you're due now when they get to classes, like find that box for the focus question on page 8 and take your summary focus question answer and put that in the box. So it's like kind of integrating the homework and the classwork. So study guide. Oh, any other questions about numbered heads together or math notes? Okay, or whatever else I talked about that I forgot. Okay.
Oh, just quick,
Yeah.
when you do the number heads together, when you have absences, do you have people?
Oh yeah, we can say, so it's gonna be person number 1, or we need a volunteers tribute. Right? Like, so you don't shift the people.
Yeah,
around.
and they stay in their seat.
Yeah, they stay there and just like, you're gonna have to, you take it for the team, it's time, so I'm gonna take it for the team for you, right? And sometimes also if I'm like, oh, they seem to not be super on task, I can be like, if you're person number 1 or the volunteer person number 1, and you know what you're gonna say, raise your hand, and then I can see like who's actually dialed in, and it's just, it really helps bring the focus that I needed. Right, so study guide, can you click on the link?
Mhm.
Oh, it's actually up there already.
Oh.
I did it. Study guide, yep, there. So this might seem, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, like people give study guides, I'm sure, but we just have the, scroll down. Just all the words that are gonna be on the multiple choice test. So teachers sometimes, including myself, like to have some kind of elements of mystery, because in college, your professors aren't gonna tell you what is gonna be on the test. But if you don't tell them what's gonna be on the test, they're not gonna study. My students are not gonna study. If they don't know what to study, they're just gonna be like, well, I guess I'm just gonna wing it and hope for the best. But if you tell them, like, these are the words that are related to questions on your multiple choice test, they will study them. And then scroll down. My exams are all multiple choice and then short answer questions, and we do essays a different way. But can you just scroll through all these sets? I give them like a whole bunch of possible SAQ prompts, like 12, and I say I'm gonna choose 2 of these sets on the actual exam, and it will be exactly the words that are on this page. And so they end up studying every single thing. So it's all the questions that it's everything from the unit. So they actually do the work. If you tell them what to study, they will study it, especially if they want to get good grades. And we do 80% of our grade at Lincoln is summative assessments, and 20% is formative. And so the exams are really important. So this is all to set up. Can you go back to the slideshow? And then, yeah. So click through that. You can look at it later. So we always do 2 days of review before the exam. The first day is all about vocabulary, and it's all those words from the top of the study guide, and then we just do a whole bunch of games. I've gone to a lot of John Hines sessions. Have you been to a John? It's all about gamifying everything. Also, that's my husband, and he's an elementary math teacher, and he just does games all the day long. And so we have all these different kinds of vocab review games that are related to little pieces of paper. How many of you have, like, you already know where I'm going with this, like playing taboo, charades, like all those kinds of things, right? So it's not really that new. So we have one of them, is this the first of the vocab review?
Mm-hmm.
Can you go back? Okay. So this is all like taboo, Pictionary, heads up, charades, right? That's the standard. Mad Libs, I'm still looking for a name for this one. It might not be as familiar. You have the envelope full of key terms, and then they have to pull out random terms and then figure out how to use them all in a paragraph that makes sense. So they have to connect them all together. It's really hard for them. Like, this has nothing to do with this. I'm like, it does. It does. So, and it's kind of a race. You can gamify it however. Okay, click through. Then we do, it's kind of like the same idea, but instead of linking them all together, I choose one word for the whole class. and they have a minute to use it in a sentence that isn't a definition, but it has to prove that they understand what it means, it's informative, but it also has to be entertaining. And then I choose 2 names that are bringing them, or 2 groups and positions, like number heads together, and then it's a battle. So I'm like, all right, read us your sentence, and they say, the Ottoman Empire was blah, 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 and your mom went to the blah, blah, blah. Like, they make jokes, so that they're trying to get a laugh, but also explain what it is, and then the other kid will say theirs, and then I'm the ultimate judge, and whoever has the best sentence gets 2 shots at trash ball. So we have the trash can, and I had some standard no deflate gate. I have the pieces of paper all uniform. That's really important. Very important. And then they get to, there's like lines, and you know what I'm going with it, right? Okay, so they make some baskets, and then we go back, but it keeps it moving really fast. And then they got a lot of sentence review going on, and they are completely engaged, and they just want to do vocab review every day. Next one. Then we're gonna play this if we have enough time. I also don't know what to name this, but Stand and Deliver is the best teaching movie, so I'm calling it that. So this is one where everybody gets a key term. So I'm gonna give out pieces of paper, and somebody stands up and says, I have the Ottoman Empire. It was an empire boat, and they have to explain what it is, then they sit down. The next person says, I have the Mughal Empire. And they give a definition, and it connects to the Ottoman Empire by, and they have to make the connection. They sit down, and the students need to get through the whole class without having more than a 30-second lag time. And sometimes I let them plan out who's gonna go in what order, but sometimes it's just more fun to be like, all right, you just have to stand up. It's like jumping into double dutch or something. It's really, it's fun. So hopefully we'll have time for that. How are we doing? Yep, we're all right. Next. Okay, so then the second day of review is collaborative study groups, which is I was an avid elective teacher for 8 years, and so I have watched hundreds, maybe even thousands of tutorials happen in my life every Tuesday and Thursday. So John Hines, he came to Lincoln and taught us. He's our curriculum guy for Tacoma, so he showed this to me, and I was like, yes, this makes so much sense, because I was really tired of trying to figure out what to do a review on. If I have one day, and we're talking about all of Unit 5, which is 1750 to 1900, I don't know which things to tell them about, and so this is good because it lets them decide if they choose which things they miss, like where are there gaps in their knowledge. Can you click to the CHG paper thing? And this is what I gave you, so you should have a handout, and on one side it's the CSG prep form.
What is the CSG?
Yeah, this one. So you have this, and I modified it from what Avid was giving me to suit. I put the key term stuff in there because it's all about vocab in my class. So they get that list, the study guide that has all of the potential prompts, and then they can use that to say, which one am I the shakiest on? I missed this, so this is the one that I want to work on. So they write that prompt up there, the original question, right? Scroll down. Then they figure out no, it's really hard. Then they figure out the key terms that are in that prompt that they're gonna need to know, and then other key terms that relate, so when they're looking it up, they know what to look for. What they already know about that topic, I can get, this is my thought process, I can get here and here and here, but I don't know, and then scroll down. This is my point of confusion, are the gaps in my knowledge. So they're all in these groups of 4 that they've been in the whole unit, and they kind of can strategize, I'm gonna do prompt number 1, you do 3, I'll do 4. So they do all this stuff the day before, it's their homework, they're passing the class, they're all if they don't have it, they have to hang out in the hallway till they get it all done. Then they come in, and then, let's see, I think, oh no, can you just go to the slides? Yep. Okay, so then, and the reason for doing this is this learning pyramid, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but we talk about it at the beginning of every CSG. The goal, you will remember 90% of the things that you teach other people, and so the goal is for you to be teachers of each other instead of just saying, here's my paper, copy it down, because that's maybe right there, and nobody's gonna remember that. So your goal is to get at least like discussion and practice as much of this as you can in your CSG, because it's in it, you're in it for yourself and for your group. We rise together. Okay, next one. So this is, I think I'm just gonna click this because it's gonna be. So this is what we go through at the beginning, just to remind them how it goes. We have facilitator and a timekeeper. First job is to figure out how many of the group's questions you want to get through in the given time and prioritize. Like this one's, none of us know this one, so we're gonna do it first. And then if we have time, then we're gonna do this other one. So they make their strategy. Timekeeper says, okay, that means that we get to spend about 7 minutes per question, and they're gonna like set their timer. Like, whoa, wow, that's amazing.
We have 10 minutes.
Woohoo! Okay. And then the timekeeper's job is to keep through that. Okay, and then whoever's turn it is first, they present their question. They say, this is what I already know, this is what I don't know. And everybody writes, they have their Cornell notes going, and they write the question down, and then they talk about it. If the person knows, if somebody in the group knows the answer, they need to immediately go into teacher mode and don't just say it. They need to be like, well, what do you remember about that? Like, pretend like you're me and don't actually answer their question. You have to answer their question with questions, right? So they are trying to have a conversation so that their teammate remembers it better. If nobody knows the answers, then they're gonna figure out which resources to consult. We have all the posters that use their math notes, they can use a textbook, whatever. Then they are sharing back their information. Yeah, you get it, right? And then they have their reflection. I grade them basically on effort and how well they stick to the class agreements and participate, and they know that it's a valuable grade for them. Also, they get, if I listen to them and they're asking questions instead of just telling people answers, then I like write on my clipboard. Yeah, coming up with strategies to remember it's all. So, oh, and then at the end, I just added this one in. When they're doing the reflection, they nominate, like I just did with you guys, they nominate people in their group who should be the MVPs, who really deserve to get the exceeds on this grade, and they have to give me justification for what they did. Did they like come up with a really great mnemonic device? Did they did they keep the conversation going? So then I'm getting data because I can't be in all places at once. So we're gonna go back. Oh, any questions about CSG? Or the exam setup, or, okay. And I have been, oh yeah?
You had on the instructions here, it says using the sentence stems. But do you have those anywhere?
The sentence stems for
When they respond.
Oh yeah, they I think I put them in the folder that's on the conference site. And I have sheet protectors in the middle of all the group spaces that have the process paper that's on the back of your CSG thing, so they remember, the facilitator remembers how to do it. And then I also have sheet protector the questions, discussions, like sentence stems that you just said. So this is good. It boosts equity. I didn't have that. There's all kinds of ways. Just removing the guesswork for the exam and study guide. Like, don't play coy. Just tell them what to study. I think that is a huge barrier in AP classes, especially for students who are like, I've never taken a hard class. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So just tell them and they'll do it. And then for the CSGs, it's really great because they are teaching each other. Like they feel confident when they can help somebody else and see that they're all in it together. Like there's a lot of incentive to do their best thinking and like help each other out. So,
and I feel like you're employing like a variety of ways that kids can engage with the material.
Yeah.
Which is not typical in a high rigor course, right? There's always only one way to engage the material and only one way that the teacher is engaging with you.
Yeah.
But you are like doing it in an entirely different way.
Yes. It's like crowdsourcing.
Yeah.
I don't like talking that much, so I make them do it. So we're gonna play a game. Unless you guys have any other questions. Oh yeah.
Is your, like the AP world exam system is based multiple choice?
Yes. It's good. It's really
So how
hard.
do you tackle, so is that part of your
We're still working on that. So one thing we did this year was, we've actually done it a few times. We give them the practice test, and the first time we did it, they didn't didn't even have to answer the question. There was a 2-column thing. I worked out with my instructional coach, and it was like, what do you have to know to be able to answer this question? And they had to like parse it, right? So you need to know where the kingdom of Mali is. You need to know the definition of this word. You need to, because that's helping them understand that studying and knowing all of these vocab words is actually going to help them on those levels, because they're like, this has nothing to do with the
Yeah, like that's my
book.
struggle, is like it's my
Right.
students would be content, okay.
Yeah,
And
so
then make it
helping
that
them, yeah,
big.
like having them parse a lot of those questions,
Yeah.
and figure out like what is the question. Oh, first, what is the question actually asking? That was the first column, and the second one was what do you have to know to be able to answer the question. And once we did that, they started to whine a lot less, which is a good sign. But also the test scores did start to improve because they realized they don't have to read the whole thing. It is going like, what do you know about this topic? You know it, we talked about it, right? It's just applying it in different ways. Other questions?
So we have like 4 minutes before our end, and I just wanted to, one, ask again if there are any questions about any of this stuff, but two, that one thing that I so value about Carinna's practice in terms of building equity is that it, to me, my framework is it goes back to the access piece, like the way that she is allowing students to access her course and access her is much different than a traditionally taught AP course, which is really difficult for first-time AP takers across the board, but particularly for students of color and low-income students who don't come in with, we talked about this so much when we were designing this, like the background knowledge. Like the kids, that is a huge barrier. That's a systemic issue, a systemic barrier that kids are coming into high schools, of course, or into the first time they can access an AP class in your school, maybe that's only at the 10th grade, without any background knowledge. And so the idea that you would go into this course, I know I wouldn't do it, that you would go into this course with no understanding of how to even navigate the class itself is keeping kids of color and low-income students at disproportionate rates out of those courses. And so to me, like the idea of access is, that's what I hear when I hear Carinna talk about. I'm doing all of these different kinds of things and kids are accessing things at different levels and different points, but they're all highly, highly engaged.
And they're all valued.
And they're all valued.
Everybody's voice is valued.
Right, right. And you said something to me that I cannot get out of my mind. 2 things. One, when you were like, if you tell them what to study, they will study it. And I was like, what? Oh, if you tell them what they need to study, they will like go hard.
Yeah, if they've proven some sense of like if they have some efficacy,
Yes.
and they can see that the studying will actually help them do, like there's a point to it,
Yeah.
and what to do.
And I don't know why to me that was so revelatory, but it sounded really good in my ears when you said that. And I'm gonna share it with schools, and it's like these little simple things that to me are huge. But the other thing was you talked about coming from your previous school and being at Lincoln and how not only your peers were pushing you in a different way, but the kids are pushing you in a different way. And so much about racial equity work, in my opinion, is being able to imagine what is possible, right? Is being able to imagine what is possible for kids, but what's possible for you as a practitioner. And that's what's happening for students. That's what you're seeing in your kids.
Right. It was awful.
And it's what
First
happened to
year,
you
And I
at-
was like, wait a minute, okay, maybe some of it is behavior, some of it is the system that's coming, like